By the 1980s, healthcare inflation was getting to crisis levels in the US, fast becoming the leading cause of personal bankruptcies. A major cause of this healthcare inflation was rising drug prices. With an approved new drug application, or NDA, and patent protection, Innovator drug companies were under very little pressure to bring down prices for their products. Under mounting public pressure, the US FDA came up with an abbreviated new drug application, or ANDA, for cheaper generic versions of Innovator drugs in early 1980. But the Innovator companies were actively resisting generic drugs, primarily by filing patent infringement lawsuits as soon as R&D work started on a generic version. There were very few ANDA applications and nothing was happening to high drug prices. So in 1984, the US Congress passed the Drug Price Competition and Patent Term Restoration Act. It was sponsored by Congressman Waxman of California and Senator Hatch of Utah. So informally, the act is referred to as the Hatch-Waxman Act. First, the act had some incentives for the Innovator drug company. It granted a new approved NDA an exclusivity period where the FDA would not accept other drug applications for the same disease indication. This gave the Innovator company protection over and above any patent. But the main part of the act was to simplify the ANDA procedure for generics. It prevented Innovator companies from filing patent infringement lawsuits just because a generics company was doing R&D. And it laid out 4 different methods for a generics company to contest an Innovator claim of patent protection, usually referred to as Para 1 to Para 4 certifications. And finally, Hatch-Waxman incentivized ANDA filing by providing an exclusivity period of 6 months for a newly approved generic drug. During that time, the FDA did not accept similar generic drug applications. Hatch-Waxman opened the floodgates for generic drugs into the US market, the largest in the world by far. And since its passage in 1984, the law has brought about a sea change in the use of generic drugs. Here are some statistics. In 1983, only 35% of Innovator drugs whose patents had already expired had generic competition. Today, that number stands at 90%. And in 1983, only 13% of doctor prescriptions were for generic drugs. Today, generics make up over 90% of all prescriptions. Because generics have negligible R&D costs, Hatch-Waxman catalyzed the burgeoning drug manufacturing industries in low-cost Asian countries, especially India. It would not be a stretch to say that the biggest beneficiaries of Hatch-Waxman were patients in the US and drug companies in India.